time, as you know that we don't have any books, so it's hard to submit our assignments. The
You,
question answer, we don't have any book, then it's very difficult
you have to
to write
submit
any answer.
your assignment by September, and
Yes, and when books will come?
books will come very soon because the lockdown 4 is going to end,
Yeah,
and after that
yeah.
probably lockdown is not going to be extended. So you will be
Okay.
receiving your book very soon. And good morning, Dr.
Good morning,
Panigrahi
sir.
sir.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, sir.
I welcome you to the fifth class and hand
Thank
over
you,
it
sir.
to you for to
Thank,
continue. Thank you,
thank you,
sir.
sir. Thank you. Okay. So, welcome, students, to the new session today, and good morning to all of you. So, let us start our class.
Good morning, sir.
Hello. Am I audible? Good morning. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir, audible.
Okay. Thank you. Audible. Then please mute your microphone so that I can continue start my class. Okay. So once again, I welcome all the learners to the fifth class.
Good morning, sir.
Yes. Okay. So today we shall discuss book 5, and book 5 deals with the restoration age, or what we call the age of Dryden and Pope, but predominantly it is identified as the age of Dryden or age of restoration, and the period covers from 1660 to 1700. Restoration period includes 1660 AD to 1700. Okay, so now when we go to this period, then why do we call it restoration? Because in our previous class we discussed a lot regarding Oliver Cromwell, and Oliver Cromwell was a statesman, and how he took over the English throne from Charles I, and Charles II, his son, was exiled to France. So Oliver Cromwell led the Parliament of England, he led also English armies against King Charles during the English Civil War of 1641, and he ruled England as the Lord Protector, not the King, as the Lord Protector from 1653 to 1658. Now, in 1658, there was the natural death of Oliver Cromwell, and by that time, there was a need for restoration of monarchy, and it was supported by a group of people, as a result of which Charles II, who was in exile in France, he was called back and he was restored to the monarchical position of England. And due to this, because literature is related to politics, history, due to this incident, this age has been identified as Restoration Age, that is from 1660 AD to 1700. And during this period, we will find the history of English literature was dominated by two major or two important intellectuals. They were John Dryden, and another was Alexander Pope. Of course, Alexander Pope was there beyond 1700, but still he comes under the Restoration Age, later Restoration Age. The life of Dryden, John Dryden, is from 1631 to 1700, as recorded, 1631 to 1700. And why Dryden is important, or more important, let us say, from the other English writers or poets or dramatists, because Dryden was an extraordinary genius. because he was not simply a poet, he was also a critic, he was also a translator, and he was also a playwright or dramatist. So at a time, you can find the multiple qualities of literary talent embodied in a single person, that is John Dryden. That he was a poet, he was a playwright, he was a critic, and he was also a translator. And he was, that is the reason for which he was awarded as the first poet laureate of England. Poet laureate means the highest award given to a man of literature by the court of England. So he was the first poet laureate of England. Now, the trains of Dryden, we shall discuss the trains of Dryden influenced a lot to the another poet, let us say, Alexander Pope. Alexander Pope was also a poet as well as a critic. But Dryden was not only a poet and a critic, he was also a playwright or a dramatist as well as a translator. Because translation as an art of literature was meaningful or became meaningful probably because of this majestic literary attempt made by Dryden or John Dryden. And the second thing is that so two major poets you shall find because our subject deals with poetry. So I will not touch upon the dramatic drama part or the critic part and all that. I will be touching on the poetry part. Now, dear learners, this age of Dryden or this age of restoration is also termed as Augustan age. And why it is Augustan age, I will discuss, but you will find it in your page number 1919 of book 5. Please record. Augustan age or neoclassical age. So let me repeat how this particular age has so many names, so many identifications, or so many identities. Age of Dryden, Restoration age, Augustan age, or neoclassical age. So it is Augustan age because it is named because August, the very particular phrase Augustan has come from the word Augustus. Augustus Caesar, who was the ruler of Rome. So when I shall go to my next section, I will discuss it in detail, that Augustan age, why it is Augustan age. But the simple meaning of Augustan is the highest, it is a term now. The proper noun Augustus has become an adjective Augustan, and it refers to the highest refinement of any national literature. The exact meaning of Augustan is highest refinement of any national spirit or national literature. I mean, highest refinement, maximum. And it is called neoclassical. Neo means new, classical means old. How old can be new? That the classics were imitated, followed, copied, but not copied. I cannot say it copied, it was imitated. Means there was the imitation of Latin literature, and Latin literature in the age of Dryden was regarded as the highest achievement of craftsmanship, literary craftsmanship. So the Latin literature was translated, the style of Latin literature was followed, the poetic techniques were followed, but with a newness, not blindly followed, with a newness. So we call it neo-classical age. Means classical age is revived, was revived with a newness in literature. And another literary trend that we find was the emergence of or the introduction of criticism. in literature. So when we talk about criticism, then obviously we talk about satire and allegory. So most of the important poems that we find during the Restoration age or Dryden's age or Avestan age or Neoclassical age, they are designed in satire, in the form of satire and in the form of allegory. I think I have already given you the idea of what a satire is and what an allegory is. Repeatedly, I am giving it in my previous classes. Satire is the criticism of someone's vices and follies for the sake of amendment, rectification, but through the use of humor and irony. An allegory is description of something under the veil of, under the cover of another. I mean, double meaning, two parallel meaning, the two parallel themes will be running together and you have to interpret it. But they will be presented in a very humorous way, ironic way, satirical way. That is the vein of literature during that period. Not only in poetry, it was very much there
Sir,
in, yes,
sir, please repeat the meaning of satire.
satire.
Yes, sir.
Satire is a form of criticism, of someone's follies and mistakes, faults and mistakes, for the sake of amendment or rectification or correction. So it is always considered as a positive form of art. It doesn't mean to injure or to hurt someone's personality or someone's mannerism, but its purpose is to bring a social rectification in the society, to bring a rectification or amendment, sansodhan, amendment in the society. So that is satire. So the poet has a
Sir, like
target.
satire and humor, like terms of arts in poetry, there's also pathos and bathos.
Yes, yes,
Sir, what
yes.
does that mean?
Which
Pathos
one?
and bathos.
They
Pathos,
are
bathos both.
they are serious elements. They are serious
Seriously.
elements. Yes, serious elements. But irony and satire are, they are comic elements, humor elements. So when you will be using humor, then you have to take the help of irony, you have to take the help of allegory, otherwise you cannot produce a good satire. Almost all the
And
satires
sir, then
are,
also there are other forms like pastoral, gothic.
that is again different forms in novel you will find all
Novel.
those things
Okay.
in
Thank you, sir.
novel, not in okay. So we find the introduction of criticism, and the for the, so criticism was there in the form of prose. You can find a Dryden, who is also a prose writer, and in the form of criticism he has, we shall discuss in the later part. But so far as the introduction of criticism is there, it is very much present in the poems also. So basically, the design of the poems or poetry during the Restoration period was satire and allegorical. Satire, they are satire and they are allegorical. Then one most important thing that we find in the Restoration age was, for the first time, there was a shift of literary patronage from court to the middleman. Because I have told you that during Spencer's time, during Chaucer's time, during the medieval time, even in the first part of Renaissance, when a poet was writing a poem, then it was patronized by the court. So the poet was bound to write such poems which would appease or which would please the king or the courtiers. Because after all, the patronage or the sponsorship was depending on their support. But due to the publication of printing press, now in London particularly, or even in the English society, particularly London, we find there was the emergence of periodicals. Periodical means the weekly magazines or the fortnightly magazines or the monthly magazines. So the two important periodicals that we find that emerged during this period was Spectator and Tatler. So they were the weekly magazines, and those magazines were published, and the writers got ample chance to to give their articles for wide publication and a wide circulation among the elite class. So as a result of which they got popularity, and the patronage system did not entirely depend on court or king or the royal or the monarchical support. Rather, a middleman came in between. Who was the middleman? Obviously, the publishing houses. The publishing houses gave royalty to the poets, as a result of which there was no need now to be obliged to the court or to be obliged to the monarch. A kind of liberty, the men of literature, they for the first time enjoyed a license or the liberty to write something from their own mind without caring for the monarchical patronage or the courtly patronage or the royal patronage. So this was a major factor to change the subject matter of literature in poem, in drama, in all the fields. So the shift of literary patronage from court to publishers, I mean the middlemen. And as I have told you at the beginning, that we call it restoration, is because the restoration refers to the restoration of monarchy on the English throne by the return of Charles II, the son of Charles I, and that Charles who was executed by the Cromwell group, and how Cromwell occupied the British Parliament or become the ruler of British Parliament. So restoration, so far as our English literature is concerned, it refers to a term. The term refers to a so far literature is concerned, not politics or other. Restoration literature uh, Restoration literature refers to a roughly homogeneous style of literature. Homogeneous style, I mean not heterogeneous, not varieties. It refers to a unique, a single, homogeneous style, a unique style, a single style, or a a particular style of literature that concerns, that deals with the celebration or reaction. Look at here, celebration or reaction to the restored court of Charles II. So there sometimes we'll find the celebration. I mean, Charles II is welcomed. I mean, support towards Charles II. But sometimes we'll find the reaction. I mean, to find out the faults, and to find out the follies or the mistakes what occurred in the court. Because I told you, satire always aims at the follies or mistakes of certain characters, because it is not for the sake of finding the fault. Why to find the fault? To find the fault for bringing rectification or for bringing amendment. So if the literature of the period supported and reacted both, I mean supported and went against both the restored court of Charles II. So we find here, so for that reason, satire is obviously an authentic mode of expressing the political view, the religious view, the cultural view, the historical view of that period. So this restoration period, in that sense, it witnessed the development of essay also, criticism was necessary, and periodicals, periodical art forms, as I told you, some magazines, some periodicals, and the beginning of a textual criticism. Earlier criticism was theoretical, now it is textual. Texts were published, books were published, and those books were obviously in the form of essays. So, in a nutshell, we can say that restoration is witnessed a revolutionary change, a great change in the social life of the people, as well as in literature. So this is just a small idea I gave you on restoration age, how it is restoration and all that. Now, I think I gave you a little, glimpse of the restoration age. Now, so far as our literary discussions are concerned, we can go to the go to different aspects of the restoration age. So first we shall discuss regarding the social background of restoration and or early 18th century England. That is social background. So social background is obviously linked with the political background or the historical background. That the what is the first point? Obviously, when it is restoration literature, then it is named after the restoration of Charles II. So Charles II against the military dictatorship of Oliver Cromwell. You know, dictatorship means the entire rule, the entire administration is controlled by a single person. As you find sometimes it was in Pakistan by Musharraf and all that. So Ekachhatravad that you say in Oriya. So Cromwell promised the people, as in Paradise Lost you find Satan was representing Cromwell. So Cromwell gave an illusion to the people of London or the people of England for a democratic form of government, a people's government. But it was in fact found that his assurance to the public of England was proved to be false because from a public leader he turned into a dictator. So he continued his dictatorship for 3 years and for so many years. And after his death, the military dictatorship of Cromwell in 1658, then Charles II was invited, and in 1660, after 2 years, he was restored to the throne of England, and restoration age begins in history, and it is related to literature also. But very importantly, when Charles II restored the throne of England, a major political change, a major political event took place. That was the division of the upper class. The division of the upper class, who were at the helm of the hierarchical order of English society, and they were in the helm of all religious, social, cultural, every political matters. So they were divided into two groups, two classes, and they were called the Whigs, 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 and another group was called Tory, Tory, Tory. They become two major political parties, the Whigs and the Tories. So the Whigs, Whigs, they, as I told you, that it was a literature which was on the support of Charles II, and also which was to criticize the government of Charles II. So these two groups, the Whigs groups, they opposed the monarchy. They opposed the monarchy. They opposed King Charles because King Charles was a supporter of Catholic practices, Roman Catholic practices. But when you come to the group of the Tories, the Tories were the Whigs were opposing the king. The Whigs were opposing the king, but the Tories were supporting the king. The Tories. So who are the Tories? The Tories were the political conservatives. Because a conservative is a person who follows the traditional path, cannot deviate. So the Tories, they supported the king, and the king was definitely following a traditional path, which is Roman Catholic path. So politically also, what is political? That the divine right theory, as I was discussing, that a king is the representative of God on the earth, and we have to obey the king to find the blessings of the God. So the Tories, when they supported the king, or they are the conservative, political conservatives, or they supported the monarchy, the Whigs opposed the king. So obviously, the Whigs were um, the Whigs were having the Protestant ideal in their mind, and our poet Dryden, John Dryden, was a supporter of the Tories. I mean, was a supporter of the king, and he was supporting the political conservatives. So we shall find in the poems of John Dryden the elements of political conservatism is also sometimes found. Then, apart from the Whigs and Tories, we find there was a so obviously when the Whigs and Tories that dominated the politics of England, there was a religious controversy between these two groups. The two groups, the two groups of supporters, or that is Protestants and Catholics. So but in the meantime, during Cromwell's rule, and after even Cromwell's death, 2 years, because Cromwell died in 1658 and king was restored in 1660. So in between all these years, we find there the English nation was predominantly Protestant, and the Catholics were being punished. So after the restoration of King Charles, we find here how that problem was to be solved. So taking this political issue, the nation uh, predominantly Protestant and king's inclination towards Roman Catholic practices, the religious controversy became a political controversy, and that was very much reflected in the in the in the finest work of John Dryden, that is Absalom and Achitophel, in the form of allegory. He has taken the story from the Bible, but it was really reflecting the political issues of British Parliament or British monarchy. So it reflects those political issues, those religious issues, and the conflict of the day. Then this division of the people was an important factor. And another important factor that we find in restoration is we have already discussed it. So its continuity is there. That is experimental science and scientific attitude, the affair of life. The affair of life, the social behavior of people were not considered in terms of Roman Catholic advices. It was considered in the form of scientific behavior. Everything was to be looked as rational. Everything was aimed at the experimentation or proof of evidence. So experimental science and scientific attitude uh, became very much predominant to the affairs of life. So as a result of which, obviously, the consequence is there was a rejection of dogmatism and mysticism of religion. I mean, the lifestyle, the new awareness of the people, it demanded proof, it demanded experimentation behind every theological pursuit. So it rejected the dogmatism. Dogma means pratha, the what we believe without considering its, I mean, genuineness, without considering its rationality. So that dogmatism and mysticism, to accept something as spiritual and to accept something as a pious without considering its genuineness, without considering its rationality, without considering its experimentation, those ideas were gradually losing their importance in the society. So there was the rejection of dogmatism and mysticism of religion. Religion was getting a new dimension. Then, obviously, it is already discussed that expansion expansion of industry, agriculture, and commerce. So when there are the expansion of industry, not the large scale industry as you find today. Of course, the industry means during that time it was different. We are discussing industry before industrial revolution. So it is before industrial revolution. So obviously, however, industry, the expansion of industry that that gave the scope for the rise of, or not only rise, the emergence and rise of a new section of populace that was the middle class, what we have already discussed as bourgeois class. So this bourgeois class, this middle class, they became the predominant factor to turn politics, to turn religion, to turn the cultural values to their own mode and to their own choices. So and in agriculture and commerce also we find the prosperity. Then the victory of common law over the prerogative courts was confirmed by the glorious revolution. It's also a very important factor of the restoration period, that the victory of common law over the prerogative courts. When you talk about when you talk about the courts law, prerogative courts, then this is the traditional law and order maintained by, fixed by, stipulated by, determined by the Roman Catholic practices of the monarchy. So because Charles II was a practitioner, or he was a follower of, Roman Catholic practices of the monarchy. Then this was the prerogative court's order or court's law. But this was very much challenged, and this was very much replaced with the victory of a common law by glorious revolution. So I am referring to, I discussed the glorious revolution. What was the glorious revolution and how it has a tremendous impact on the restoration literature. That is, uh, uh, that is, a minute, just a minute. That glorious revolution, that okay, glorious revolution that took place in 1688. It took place in 1688, and why it is called glorious revolution? Because there is no bloodshed like our non-violent movement, you can say, but we cannot compare like this. So the glorious revolution was, it is called glorious because there was no revolution in the history of England which was without bloodshed, without violence. So how was the revolution? That King Charles II, who was the restored king, King Charles II's brother James II, King Charles' brother James II, he extended the throne in 1685. Okay, after the death of Charles II, and he favored Catholicism like his brother. He favored Catholicism, and he became very unpopular, and he lost his seat in a bloodshed revolution. So Charles II's brother James II ascended the throne in 1685, and he favored Catholicism and the Catholic practices, because the majority of the population was interested for, that is, Protestant practice of life. So he became very unpopular due to this, and he lost his seat in a bloodless revolution. So that is the glorious revolution, and as a result of the glorious revolution, we find the common law made by, the common law designed by the new group of people that became dominant over that prerogative court law, which was based on Catholic ideas. So because why I'm discussing this, because they are very much there in the poems of in the subject matters of John Dryden and Alexander Pope, of course, in the allegorical manner. Then, as we discussed, that there was the shift of patronage, literary patronage from the court to the middleman. Then, one important thing is that you can get it in your, book. That is the book 5. You can get it in from page number 7 to. You can get it from your page number 7 to page number 23. You can get all these things. Page number 723. So one more important thing, you see, what was the newness, the new Protestant spirit, the change of the shift of literary patronage, okay, the growth of middle class, the rejection of dogmatism and mysticism, the experimental science, the Tory and Whigs, the political scenario, and we find the role of coffee house, because during that time in England, coffee houses were established, and the coffee like our in the coffee houses were meant for the meant to spend the leisure time uh, of the intellectuals, of the elites. They were attending the coffee house to spend their time, but the time was mostly spent on the important discussions, erudite debate on the contemporary topics. And from that debate, from that topics, we find emerged the idea of criticism. The idea of criticism. So, coffee house, the role of coffee house in English literature is very important for the promotion of literary activities among the elites. And that was the design of the day. That was the erudite practice of the day, the practice of the elites of the day, which was a boost to the growth of English literature. Because when the books, the periodicals, the journals, the dramas, the poems, they were discussed among the elites in the coffee house, the coffee house became a point of for criticism, for discussion of literature, and it boosted. And unfortunately, one more event was there. That was the plague. As we discussed, plague, which was taught as Black Death, reducing the population to a greater extent. So the plague took place in 1665, and followed by a plague in London. There was a great fire in 1666. So during these 2 years, plague, as you find, we are running through COVID-19, Corona effect, and Amphan recently destroyed everything. So that is the unfortunate events that shattered the socio-political scenario of London people, or broadly speaking, the English people, was plagued in 1665, followed by a great fire that ravaged a huge amount of property of English people, including the cutting down so many libraries and all that. Loss of life, loss of property, loss of their prosperity to a larger extent, which is very much reflected allegorically, of course, again in the poem of Dryden about the great loss, that is Enos Mirabilis. John Dryden has written a poem, Enos Mirabilis, Annus Mirabilis, yes, Enos Mirabilis. So he has reflected, or he has presented those contemporary events of the English people. One thing is very clear, that the restoration poetry, it was very much targeting at imitating the classical literature, imitating the Latin literature, Roman literature, but to present them in a new form, as Milton's Paradise Lost, to present them in a new form, new ideology, new technique, time. Of course, for that purpose, they were not serious. They were not serious exteriorly. So explicitly, they look humorous, they look allegorical, they look ironic, but there was a serious undercurrent continuously ran through their poems. So implicit seriousness under explicit humor. It was humorous, it was allegorical, it was satirical, but under it, a current of seriousness always prevailed. So, for that design, for that technique, they wrote their great works in the serio-comic manner. What is serio-comic manner? Serious in undertone, comic in the exterior level. And they appeared to be comical, they appeared to be comic, but they very much contain a serious undertone with them. So it was allegorical, and they were the design was mock heroic. We shall discuss mock heroic later on. Then, apart from this, we can also come across some social changes that was there during the Restoration period. What are the social changes? The social changes that was the missionary activities were encouraged. Missionary activities. So, what are the missionary activities? Missionary has come from a word mission. What is mission? Mission means target, aim, target. So, what was this target? Because during the later part of 17th century, due to the expansion of imperialism, due to the expansion of navigation, the British people could have explored. They could explore African continent, Asian continent, and even Australian America. So they thought themselves to be the master of the world. And there was a popular term that prevailed among them, that was white man's border. That means the British people thought that the entire world is in the darkness, and the population of the rest of the world, other than the Britishers, they are savages and they are uncultured, they are uncivilized, and they have a burden or they have a responsibility or they have some duty to make the people civilized. And for this civilization, they thought that Christianity was the best medium to bring them up to civilization. And when, as a result of which, with this motto, they send different navigators, they send different explorers to different islands to convert them into Christian, to bring them onto their fold. Because once you bring someone to a particular, it's a particular law, the rules and principles, then the person will be under your control. So their prime target was to bring them onto the fold of their imperialistic power in the name of religious conversion. So that was their aim. And once they become Christian, they will be coming onto their control by establishing churches, bringing them together, and to loot their natural resources and to loot their human resources. So, with this purpose, they actually, with a selfish purpose, the missionary activities were encouraged, and it is very aptly commented by a critic that they did their missionary activities by Bible in one hand and pistol in other hand. I mean, you either you follow the Bible or you be ready to get the bullet from the pistol. So it was by hook or crook. They wanted to convert the world to bring them onto their administrative folder or onto their imperialistic folder to control their economy, to control their politics and all that. So that activity was encouraged during the latter part of 17th century. Then scholasticism was replaced by skepticism, reason, and experiment. As I told you, that there was a rejection of dogmatism, there was a rejection of mysticism, because they were not based on any factual principles, they were not based on any fact. So scholasticism means the idea of classical or the idea of Roman Catholic ideology. So Roman Catholic ideology was not based on any experimental facts. That was just a dogma. That was just a tradition that the people used to follow. So when scientific temper increased, when scientific temper grew, scientific temper made the people aware, that definitely raised questions against so many issues. Does God exist? Can God do this? Can we get spiritual satisfaction just by going to the church and doing prayer? All those things were questioned with the Protestant spirit. So scholasticism, or blindly following the idea of classical and Catholic mysticism, that was replaced with the newness of skepticism, doubt, skepticism, and reason or rationale or experimentation. So obviously, in this kind of a situation, we find that the society, the culture, the politics, the religion, or the history of restoration period attended a re-evaluation of restoration morality. The morality, the ethics of the period demanded a re-evaluation of everything. Let there be a re-evaluation. Let there be correction. Let there be amendment. So, due to this, I mean, revaluation, demand for revaluation, or a craze for revaluation, there was the dismissal of fiction or myth. Fiction means something unreal, something imaginary. So you just cannot imagine and write something, but you have to write something factual. You have to write something in terms of the contemporary interpretation of fact, which would be based on some experimental truths. And there was also the dismissal of myth. Myth, you understand? Myth, myth means, from myth we have mythology, Purana mythology. So what exactly myth? Because, dear learners, we have three types of literature. One is fact, another is fiction, and another is myth. So when we talk about fact, means the truth. So when you read something about Mahatma Gandhi, or when you read something about Shah Jahan, or when you read something about Chandragupta Maurya, then you somehow know some facts are there, supporting facts are there, that yes, they existed sometime in the society in some days. So they are the facts, because they are based on some factual, some factual things available to us. So we can include historical narrations or historical writings that will come under facts. But when we talk about fiction, fiction means something unreal. So when we read a novel, or when you watch a movie having a plot, then you find, you know that it is a story. The story is always an imaginary. The story writer, the prose writer, the novelist, they wanted to present it before their audience or before their readers in such a way that they would feel that as if it is a fact. But it is not a fact. We know it is not a fact. It is a fabrication of someone's creative power of imagination. So that is fiction. So we call novel fiction. Novels, the other name of novel is fiction, because the story of a novel is always imaginary. It may appear as original, but it is imaginary. So that is fiction. So historical narrations are facts, and that is fiction. So when a reader is there, the reader knows that when I am reading Shahjahan, or when I am reading Cromwell, or when I am reading Elizabeth, then it is fact. So when I am reading Harry Potter, or when I am reading Gulliver's Travels, or when I am reading something, then the story is a fiction. Okay, but myth comes in between fact and fiction. Let us say that you are reading Mahabharata, or let us say you are reading something about Vishnu Puran, or you are reading something about God. Then in that case, or you are reading something about Bhagavad, or you are reading something like that. So now the question here is that, is it a fact or is it a fiction? Because when I read Mahabharata, or an episode of Mahabharata, then I do not know whether the thing really happened or not. So if I believe that the thing really happened, then I need its historical evidence with full proof, not assumption and presumption, full proof, full support. But at the same time, if I say no, it is not true, so let us say it is a fiction, then also there will be a problem. Because if I am a Hindu, I am not prepared to reject entirely that Krishna was not there. Krishna was just an imaginary character made by Vyasadeva. So I have to believe, even if some historical evidences are there or not there, because I am a Hindu, I believe. That is why I salute Lord Krishna. I go to a Krishna temple, or I celebrate Janmashtami or something like that. So similarly, in every religious sector, you will find myth is there. I mean, that is where from myth, mythology has come. So this myth, which has come from the Sanskrit word mithya also, something unreal, but it is not actually unreal. So myth is coming in between fact and fiction. You have to believe, even though it is not believable. So that kind of fiction or myth, which were there in English literature before the Restoration age, that was dismissed. The Restoration poets, the Restoration writers, at least did not uh, did not take them onto their consideration, and they discarded, they rejected, they dismissed fiction, they dismissed myth, they dismissed superstition, they dismissed religion, considering it to be harmful to human spirit and human personality. For them, it was harmful to human spirit, it was harmful to human personality. So this was a very important factor of the social change, which was very much incorporated in the poetry of Restoration period. Then I'm coming to this was social change. So when we go to the literary context of the age, literary context of the age, then as I told you that it is a restoration age according to history, it is Dryden's age according to literature, and it is
Sir,
also
the rejects, sir, sir, the
yes,
rejection of
yes,
mythology, rejection of myth is harmful to human personality.
yes. This was the idea of the restoration writers, because they simply depended on facts and facts. Okay, so only historical events, because history is based on fact according to them, obviously according to us also. So they did not consider myth to be the aspect of their literature. So when you come to the literary context, then we find that uh, it is Augustan age. So Augustan age in the sense that let me refer to Augustus, what I have already referred, that during the Roman Emperor Augustus Caesar's reign or rule, and it was the beginning of Christian era. So Augustus Caesar's rule in Rome that witnessed the beginning of Christian era AD, and Latin literature achieved the greatest height during Augustus Caesar, because, as I told you in my previous class, it is recorded in history that Augustus Caesar found Rome with bricks, but he left Rome with marble. Means from he had made an overall development in all spheres of activities, social activities, cultural activities, literal activities of Rome and Latin literature, from brick level to marble level, to the highest level. So it was the age of Roman classicism, when the most eminent poets like Virgil, like Homer, like Aeneid, they were there. So Latin literature reached its culmination, reached its highest point by the poets like Virgil, who wrote Aeneid, Homer's Iliad, So they must still today. So Roman literature, Latin literature, witnessed its highest, refinement during Augustus Caesar. And in socio-political context also, Rome could witness its highest status during the time of Augustus Caesar. So, for the historians and for the men of literature, the term Augustan has been coined. And today it has been a universal term, Augustan. And Augustan means highest refinement of any national literature. So English is the national literature of England. So during Dryden's time, English literature or the national literature of England that could reach at its height. So how it could reach at its height? Because that was the age by this single man, Dryden, predominantly drama, prose, criticism, poetry, and translation that could attain the pinnacle of its success. So it included the affairs of civic and political life of the nation, contemporary social values, cultural values, and also the Protestant spirit of uh, experimental science to support the uh, activities of life in the society. The writers that compare the society. I mean, 17th century England writers that compare their society with the society of the ancient Roman of Augustus' time. So there is a parallelism of historical and allegorical account that always reign through their works. You will find a classical design, you will find a classical subject, but you must not get confused that it is just for the sake of presentation, because under this there is the undercurrent of their contemporary political, social, cultural, and religious situation that prevailed. So obviously the poem is always allegorical. Then I had also told
Sir,
that this,
the
okay,
poet's translation, you say translation. What kind of translation does they do? Does they do the
translation,
translation work of
trans,
other like Rome culture of Rome, literary
part,
works of Rome?
particularly the translation of the Latin poets that Dryden did a lot. Translation of the Latin poets. Okay, so you see, translation is not just to copy down something to your own language. Translation
Like
is also,
plagiarism.
yes, it can be plagiarism. Translation is also a creative art because when you translate the work of someone into another language, then you must not forget that there is a cultural variation. Because when you translate a text written in Gujarati to Bengali, or from Bengali to Odia, or from Odia to Kannada, or to Kannada to English, then it is not exactly the same. Because the role of a translator is to reflect his own culture, and that is why translation is not just an imitation; it is also an art of creativity. So that is why a translator is also a creative artist. I mean, there
It
lies
is
his
just like that of Hamlet was translated. Work of Hamlet was translated in many different languages in many different movies.
yes, but it is translation is not just simply a copy. Okay, because I can give a very small example of a translation that you might have heard the name of a book called Anand Mont. Okay,
Anand
by,
Mont.
by Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay, Anand Mont. So that Anand Mott has been translated by a Gujarati writer into Gujarati. So there is a scene in Anand Mott that there is a hostel, and in that hostel, some school boys are staying, and it is the afternoon, and all the school boys are playing in the field. And from their hostel mess, they are very much getting the smell of fish fry, and the fish fry is stimulating them into such an extent they are very much excited to play the game of football with double enthusiasm because it is written by a Bengali person, Bengali writer. The Bengali people
Fish
are
and
very,
football are there.
yes,
The
so
fish
Bengali,
and football.
yes, Bengali people are very fond of fish, but when it is translated into Gujarati, he is omitting that because Gujarati people are very much vegetarian. So instead of giving fish fry, now he changing it into the preparation of halwa with cow ghee, pure ghee, and that smell is encouraging them because the cultural difference is there. So what I'm trying to say here is that when translation is being made, that the translator takes immense care, lot of care to maintain the cultural background because that is very much important. Anyway, so let's go into that. Now I'm coming to that neoclassical age. This age is also called the neoclassical. So let me explain you in a very small language that neo means new and classical means old. Classical. So this term neoclassical has been defined by our famous English poet T.S. Eliot. You shall come across him in the modern poetry. T.S. Eliot, who is also a critic. The T.S. Eliot defines neoclassical like this: that neoclassical is the vastness of the past, but of its present value. The vastness of the past, but of its present value. So when you take something from the past, then how that vastness of the past will be presented in the contemporary scenario to create some value for the people who are living in the society. If I take a story, if I take an episode from the Mahabharata and I present it before the people of 21st century, then I must present it in such a way, I must reflect or interpret it in such a way that it would have some genuine impact to cater to the need of the present political scenario. So that is neoclassical treatment of a work of art. I mean, in the classical, the old elements will be treated with a new, dimension for the broader benefit of the people as well as the society. Another writer, critic, Ben Jonson, he uses the term neoclassicism or neoclassical, that it is the imitation of Latin and Greek literature. So we will imitate the Latin and Greek literature not only on the thematic aspect, but also on its structural aspect, but also on its other aspects, structural aspects, technical aspect, thematic aspect, and a literary aspect. So this was just imitation. But as I have already told you, imitation does not mean simply to copy. Imitation means to copy with your creative talent. So this was the neoclassical age in that sense. Now I'm coming to the poetic diction of the Restoration poetry. Diction means the technique of language or the kind of language that a writer or a poet or a playwright uses. Diction, use of language in a work of art is diction. So poetic diction you see, when you go to the poetry of Spencer or when you come to the poetry of metaphysicals, then the language they use was totally different. And when you go to Chaucer, there is a different type of language. But the language of the age is never the language of poetry. In Dryden's period, in Spencer's period, the language of his own age was the language of his poetry. In Chaucer's period, the language used by the public was the language of the poetry. Because I have already told you that was the greatest contribution of Chaucer. He is called the father of English literature because he used the East Midland dialect of the London people, which became the standard English. So these poets they have already preferred the language used by the people of their time to be the language of their poetry. But when you come to Dryden's period or Restoration period, then the language of the age was never the language of the poetry. So what was the use of the language? Use of the language were always the use of the language was always ornamental language. Ornamental language. It is highly decorative. It is high sounding language. So high sounding language or highly decorative language or ornamental language has never been the language of the people to be used in our life, is used in our day-to-day life. So this poetic diction of the Restoration poets like Pope and Dryden, they are, but when you, because after this age, in our next class, we shall jump to Romantic age. So when you come to Romantic age, the pioneer of that age is William Wordsworth. And William Wordsworth very much uses the language used by the common man. There was a great deviation of the linguistic technique or the technique of diction used by these two groups. So the language used by the Restoration poets were very much criticized by William Wordsworth because William Wordsworth's language is totally different from Dryden's. That was simple language. The language,
Sir,
the
hello. I'm not able to understand poetic diction.
diction means the kind of language or the kind of the style of language used by a poet. It's called diction. The simple meaning of diction is the kind of language. Okay, so we have discussed Chaucer, we have discussed Spencer, we have discussed Milton, we have discussed metaphysics. So in their poems, we have found that they used the language which was used by the people of their ages. So the diction of their poem, the quality of language of their poem, the quality of presentation of their poem was based on the language used by the people in the society. But when you come to the Restoration period, the language, the diction used in the Restoration poem was very much ornamental, alankariko. If you put on alankar or ornament and you look gorgeous. Similarly, the language was gorgeous. It was ornamented. It was decorated with much high-sounding words, erudite show of knowledge. They wanted to show their knowledge. So obviously, this type of language was considered to be artificial so far as the real life is concerned. But they used it. And even if they wrote in the form of poems, they preferred using their quality of language to be more prosaic than poetic. It did not appear to be poetic because when you go to other ages, you will find the language as poetic language, poem-like language. But in Dryden's poem, in Restoration poem, the language was prosaic, but it was ornamental, high-sounding, but it is difficult to understand, critical, and it was emphatic, it was high sounding, it was ornamental. So Wordsworth, who was a pioneer of using simple language, simple diction in poetry, he has very much criticized the restoration poetry's language that to be artificial. They are artificial because that type of language is not used by the people in day-to-day life. And he also said that they are gaudy. Gaudy, gaudy. Gaudy means something showy, something ornamental. And also he used three adjectives for the restoration poetry's language. One is artificial, another is gaudy, and another is inane. I-N-A-N-E, inane. Inane means lacking any sense or lacking any meaning. It is boring, it is annoying. So for Wordsworth, it is boring. For Wordsworth, it is inane. For Wordsworth, it is gaudy. It is showy. Just they are just trying to show their. So far as the language is concerned, not the subject matter. So the poet and but why did they do like that? Why did they make it prosaic? Why did they make it ornamental? Why did they make it something different from the common language of the people? Because they were they were allowed to have the poetic license or the poetic liberty or the poetic freedom of speaking things in the verse or speaking things in the verse in a prose style. They had the poetic license. They had the literary license to speak to the people uh, the politics of the time, the truth of the time in the form of verse in a prose style. So the poetic diction is ornamental, the poetic diction is prosaic, and they had the poetic license to do that. Now, what was the religion, philosophy, and morality of Restoration poetry? As you know, that the scientific spirit demanded Christianity to be reasonable. They asked questions, they challenged each and every aspect of the Roman Catholic practices. So there was a new search suggested for the Old Testament of the Bible. Let there be a new search. Let there be a reorientation of the Bible. So, in a nutshell, you can say the age demanded for a holy alliance or a holy understanding of science and religion. The age sought for, the age wanted for, the age was interested for a holy communion, a holy alliance, a holy understanding between science and religion. And this took place because of a great movement that was Quaker movement, Quaker, Quaker movement, or what we call Quakerism, Quaker. So Quaker movement led to literary activity. The Quaker movement, the founder of Quaker movement was George Fox, and it was in the mid 17th century uh, in English society. And what was the Quaker movement? Fundamentally, the Quakers or the supporters of the movement, they were the supporters of propagators of Protestant theology, I mean anti-Roman Catholic theology. And Quaker movement particularly aimed for the spread of evangelicalism. Evangelicalism means God and religion required to be proved. So evangelicalism is anti-Catholicism. So They demanded God and religion required to be proved. So this Protestant spirit is something where uh, is something it led to some kind of belief that what the belief of the Quakers was that there is something of God in everybody and each human being. Some godly quality is present in every human being because human being is essentially good. He becomes bad by falling into some unavoidable situations. So every human being is having a unique worth. So you can experience the divine quality within you, or you can get experience the religious truth through your inner experience. And how can you exercise your inner experience? Inner experience can be exercised through the deliverance of your conscience or vivek. If you are conscientious, because even if a thief has got a conscience, when a thief is going to steal, he knows that he is doing something wrong, but he does it because he is compelled by some situations, probably what he cannot avoid. So when there is something of God within you, and you can realize it through your inner experience by the exercise of your conscience, then it is a direct experience of an individual with the God. So there is no need of mediation, there is no need of Bible, and there is no need of church. So there will be a direct experience of God rather than observing any ritual, observing any ceremony, or visiting to church or like that. So this was the Quaker movement, and Dryden was very much influenced by the Quaker movement. That is no mediation, that direct link to God. So we can find these qualities, some of the qualities that is very much there in the Restoration poetry. So if that is the thing, then when you come to the Restoration poetry, let me tell you in a very systematic and nutshell way that what are the characteristics of Restoration poetry or under this background that Restoration poetry is mostly satirical, realistic, written in heroic couplet, but prosaic style with ornamental language. Then, Restoration poetry is considered moderate in the way it emphasizes precision or economical use of language and words. Economical use, no big explanations, very economical use of language and words. Then, first one is the satirical, realistic, allegorical, written in the heroic couplet, prosaic style, ornamental language. Then moderate in the way of presentation. Then the third point we can say that it is based on realism because it focuses on vivid, realistic presentation of corruption they saw in the society during Charles II and that is the Glorious Revolution, because the very spirit of the poem is for moderation, something new. So obviously, to establish realism in their poetry, they clearly rejected any form of dogmatism and mysticism. Now, even if they followed the classical literature as their model, as the subject matter sometimes for allegorical purpose, they stopped the use of classical they stopped the use of classical allusions and Latin quotations. They stopped the use of classical allusions, classical examples, and classical quotations. They took the theme, they took the story, they took the plot from classics, but they presented it in a new way. Then it was the poetry of reason or rational, just that is experimentation. Why? Because of the rise of skeptical rationalism in the intellectual spirit. Skeptical rationalism. They became skeptic. They started asking questions why and how on every. They demanded proof and
Sir,
experimentation.
sir, when
Yes,
Quakerism took place, does they succeed in the bringing up the alliance between religion and scientific experimental things?
yes, yes,
They succeed.
yes, yes. They bring a
Uh,
collision between that. They bring so when you talk about reason, that instead of focusing on the metaphysical aspect or metaphysical ideas, the poetry of restoration period was inspired by many scientific development of the time that encouraged people to use reason to solve problems. So this was due to the rise of skeptical rationalism. Skeptic, understand? Skeptic means who ask
yes,
questions
sir.
on religion
Who ask
and
questions,
okay.
reason.
So yes. So rise of the skeptical rationalism in the intellectual spirit. So that is very much focused in their point. And as you know, the major development of this restoration poetry is satire. Satire is the literary art for them through fun, through ridicule, through humor, and with a sense of amusement or disgust. And what was their criticism? The mannerism. The manner of a satirist is different from a lyrical poet. So they were all satirists. So they were very much different from the lyrical poets. Or what lyrical poet? What is a lyric? Lyric is a serious poem, descriptive poem, and it is based on a single thought, and it is mostly subjective. The poet writes about himself, his own ideas, his own feelings, and the single feeling runs throughout the poem. So that is always serious, but satire is considered to be more, I mean, befitting for the Restoration age than the lyrical poets.
It's a vivid
And
one, not
that
a
was
single understanding.
no, no. Lyric is a long narrative, a long descriptive poem containing a single thought or emotion of the poet, which is
Yes,
subjective
sir.
or
So
personal. Personal.
those are single thought, and these satires were vivid.
Yes,
Like
the debate, the criticism,
okay,
debate. Okay, and allegorical. So, there was so when it is allegorical, when it is irony, or when it is that is satire, then there is satire and allegory. Then the frequent use of irony is there, because when there is frequent use of irony, then because judging and criticizing, judging and criticizing became the common trait of society of that restoration age for creating general awareness in the mind of the people. So because of the quality of the judging and criticizing, we find the poetry of Dryden, the poetry of that age, was definitely satire, and they they used frequently irony, because study of poetry became why it was important, because for the first time we find during Dryden's age, study of poetry became an academic activities by the educated life or educated people, because prior to Dryden, poetry was not taught. It was for the court people, it was meant for the people, but poetry was included as an academic activity in schools and colleges. So a lot of students, they came in contact with poetry to evaluate them and to, so what is their purpose? The let the young generation be acquainted, let the young generation be aware of the politics of everything that is happening around them. So for that purpose, the newness of the society, the contemporary affair of the society was reflected in the book. It is a major point that study of poetry became an academic activity for the educated people. Then the next is that there was the denial of false spiritual authorities, and it became the duty to please the audience through the restoration poetry, because it was mainly based on humanism, and humanism aimed to familiarize the unfamiliar to mass media. To familiarize the unfamiliar, I mean, which is not known to the fact, which is not known to the people, which is remaining as unfamiliar, let that be made familiarized among the people for the creation of awareness. So it was having a humanitarian approach to familiarize the unfamiliarized to the through the mass media, and mass media means the periodicals at that time. No TV, no radio, nothing like that. So that was that. And significantly speaking, the most important works like Absalom and Achitophel of John Dryden, the major work of the period, and Rape of the Lock by Alexander, the two major works. They were written on the mock epic style. Mock epic style. So what is that mock epic style? I have already told you that what is epic. Epic is a long narrative heroic poem based on some cultural value where the hero is there, he faces some adventures and etc. etc. Some other qualities I told you. So what is mock heroic? Mock heroic means, as you know, it is available in volumes. So the poets will follow some epic qualities, but not in a serious manner. So it will be in a light manner, light vein. So mock epic. Let me exactly tell you how we can explain mock epic. That mock epic typically satirizes or parodies that subject or that element from the common classical stereotypes of heroes or heroic literature. Means he will take a character from the classics, but you will present such type of a character from your own situation in a very lighter vein. Let me give you an example that when you take a character from Ramayana or Mahabharata, then obviously those characters are serious characters. They are not for humor. But when I take that kind of, suppose I take a character like Sakuni or take a character like Duryodhana from the present scenario, but if I present the character in a lighter manner, then it will be like a mock seriousness or mock epic quality. So, in other words, it is to put a fool in the role of a hero, or it is to exaggerate the heroic quality to such a point that they become absurd and they become laughable. You select a character and you present the character in the manner of a classical heroic character who are a stereotype, because Ram is a stereotype, Marjada Purushottam, Duryodhana is a villain, Ravan is a villain. They are stereotype characters. So you will select a character of today, you will present the character in the manner of a stereotyped classical character, but it is in such a lighter way, lighter vein, that to create fun, to create amusement in the mind of the readers. So that is mock epic. So the two epics, not epics, mock epics, they have Solomon Achitophel and Rape of the Lock. They are very much in the quality of mock epic. So mock epic style, in a sense, is the elaboration of ceremonious style of the epic poem with the narration of political subject matter of the time, and it is on the observation on contemporary culture, religion, social issues in a funny meaningful style. It is not only for the sake of fun, because I told you that satire is to create fun, but not simply to create fun. It has got an artistic target for amendment, and that is its seriousness. So mazak mazak mein you will be saying something serious. So there must be the use of irony, there must be the use of criticism, the overstatement, all those things will be allegory will be there. So this is one of the two of the mock epics which are very much popular with the Dryden or with the restoration qualities. Now, dear learners, that I am coming to some of the poetry of Dryden. So when we take Dryden as the pioneer of the age, which is named after
Hello, sir.
him. Yes,
Hello. Hello.
yes,
Hello,
I'm
sir. Please
listening.
sir, please explain characteristic of restoration poetry.
Restoration poetry. There are so many
Characteristic of
characteristics. There are so many characteristics I have told you. One was that it was satirical, realistic, eh? And it was satirical. It was realistic. It was written in the heroic couplet style, prosaic style, but ornamental diction. The second point I told you that it was moderate. Moderation was there because restoration poetry was considered to be moderate in the way, because it emphasized on the precision or economical use of language and words. The exact use of very uh, appropriate selection of words and languages. Then it also, third point is that it also focused on realism, the vivid, realistic presentation of corruption they saw in the society, the political problems they saw in the society. As a result of which, they stopped the use of classical allusions and Latin quotations. They rejected dogmatism and mysticism. Then it was the poetry of reason, because instead of focusing on the metaphysical aspect of metaphysical ideas of poetry, this restoration of poetry was inspired by many scientific development of the time, and because there was the rise of skeptical rationalism in the intellectual spirit of the people, so that encouraged the people to use reason to solve their problem in the poetry. So obviously they took satire as the form, so they used allegory, they used irony, and all those things. So these are some of the qualities. And mock heroic style is their preferential choice. So we find two major poems of the age which are very important. One is Absalom and Achitophel by John Dryden, and another is The Rape of the Lock by Alexander Pope. So coming to okay, is it clear or not? I have already told you. I just repeated.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then I'm coming to Dryden's poetry. So I have already apprised you of Dryden's quality and all that. So still, when we focus on Dryden, then we can categorically find that you can divide Dryden's poetry in three different heads, in three major heads. One, the first one is political satires, under which that Absalom and Achitophel comes, then political satires, then another is doctrinal poems, some religious poems, and the next one is fables. Fables are the stories of birds and animals for the sake of giving some moral values to the society. So political satires, then doctrinal poems and fables. But all the three kinds of poems or poetic technique of Dryden, they possess all characteristics of restoration age that we discussed right now. With they possess all characteristics of restoration age, and through the representation of the political problems of their time. So in 1681, when he wrote Absalom and Achitophel and another poem, Religio Laici, then they exposed the political disturbance of the time that is the problem arose between two groups of supporters and the people who oppose the Whigs and the Tories. How the problem came? The supporters of Protestantism, the Protestant ideology, and the supporters of the conventional monarchy, that is Roman Catholic system. So Dryden began his poetic career by writing an elegy, the poem on death, writing an elegy on the death of the protector Oliver Cromwell. Because Oliver Cromwell died in 1658, and on his death, Dryden wrote a poem to commemorate the death of Oliver Cromwell. Because the public spirit of the time gave his poetry the public themes. He wrote poetry on public themes. And his greatest work, that is why, is political satire. The politics of his time is reflected under the cover of a religious story taken from the classical period, but with the contemporary interpretation. Because the political scenario of the time was that there was the rise of the power of British Parliament, and there was a civil war between the two groups of people, the Tories and the Whigs. There was the regicide, the murder of the king, glorious revolution. These are the symptoms of the rise of common man. Because the common man became involved in the political turmoil of the situation. And this common man's involvement was more and more marked in his poetry. And that was the spirit of Protestant theology or Protestant ideology. His work, Essay on Dramatic Poesy, I am repeating the name of the book. Dryden's work, prose work, Essay on Dramatic Poesy. He says, the comment is very popular, that the real study of literature is to study men and society. The real study of literature is to study men and society. So the main subject matter of his poem was men and society. And society includes religion, society includes politics, society includes culture, all those things. So when he wrote his mock heroic poems, it does not appear to be too much poetic. Rather, they are prosaic. So it is unpoetical because of the use of prosaic diction, prosaic language. And for the classical model, for the epic style, he imitated two Latin satires by Horace, 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 Latin poet, and one is Juvenal, Juvenal, Juvenal. So Absalom and Achitophel, the mock heroic satire, the political satire, is based on the Horatian model and Juvenal model. So this is the classical design it took. Apart from that, as I told you, he was also a translator, and he translated some of the classical poems from the Roman literature. There is Ovid's epistle, Epistle. Epistle. Epistle means a series of letters. Is epistle, because you can find a poem written by Alexander Pope, that an epistle of Dr. Arbuthnot, Alexander Pope's poem. So that epistle quality they followed from the Roman poet Ovid. Ovid's epistle, written The translation was made in 1680. Another classical poem he translated, that is Ecologies, that is written by Virgil, the Roman poet Virgil. And he also translated Aeneid, the great epic of Virgil, in 1697. So, imitation of classical model had always been the favorite subject of Dryden, either through translation or through mock heroic presentation. Apart from that, we find the other works of Dryden is the Medal, written in 1682, Annus Mirabilis, the poem on the Great Fire of London, written in 1667, Songs for Saint Cecilia's Day, written in 1687, Mac Flaconi, written in 1682. These poems are in your text. So, but among all these poems, you will find he is quite familiar for Absalom and Achitophel. And Absalom and Achitophel as a political allegory or political satire, it is based on the topic is based on the rebellion, glorious revolution, the rebellion and Absalom against King David. In the classical subject, there is a rebellion of Absalom against King David. But this subject matter has been allegorically presented on the real subject matter of that how King Charles II faced the rebellion and he was expelled from the throne. He was driven out from the throne, excluded from the exclusion of King Charles II in 1679 by the Monmouth rebellion. So here the Absalom and Achitophel is an allegorical presentation of the contemporary Monmouth rebellion in the allegorical form of the in allegorical form of the classical rebellion of Absalom against King David. So who was this Monmouth? What was the Monmouth rebellion? Because when King Charles supported the Roman Catholic practices and the Tories did not support him, then they sought for the support of the Prince of Monmouth. Prince of Monmouth was supported by the Tories to overthrow Charles II. And the Prince of Monmouth, who was Prince James, the Duke of York, he became the King of England, Ireland, and Scotland after the death of regicide of Charles II, who was his elder brother. And in 1685, King James succeeded the throne. So this political situation, civil war, the call for the Duke of Monmouth, the Catholic practices of Charles II, the Protestant awareness among the public, all those things are very allegorically presented under the cover of the classical theme of Absalom's rebel against King David, as you find in Paradise Lost House. Satan represented Cromwell, God represented the monarchy. So similarly, when we come to Alexander Pope, who is coming under the late Restoration poet from 1600, life is from 1688 to 1744. He also wrote some poems in this Restoration style. The poems were like, it is in your text, page number 79, an epistle to Dr. Arbuthnot. It is a poem based on the criticism of wedding or marriage, because in 18th century, marriage in English society was not only a social institution, it was very secretly designed for the settlement and financial consideration of the youths. Because uh, and in another poem, the Donciad, written in 1728, the poet Alexander Pope compares compares a very small incident with, in a mock heroic style or in a very allegorical style, with the contemporary scenario of the time. It is very much there in your text. You can, because I don't have time, I cannot go in detail. But I will be definitely emphasize on the rape of the lock, which is a which is as good as potential as Absalom and Achitophel, written in 1712 in the epic style, because it has 5 cantos. Canto means section. It has 5 cantos. It has 5 sections, because epic has 5 sections. But it is a high burlesque poem. Burlesque. Burlesque means a literary work to cause laughter by caricaturing the manner or spirit of some serious work, some serious work in a very lighter vein. So you can use the word burlesque, highly burlesque, Burlesque. So rape of the lock is burlesque. Because why it is burlesque? Because you look at the word rape. So when the word rape is there, ordinarily we mean that rape is a violent physical attack, on a woman, which not only destroys her body, rather it also destroys her dignity, it destroys her feminine ego, it destroys the peace of her mind for so a longer period. So it is a kind of devastation of a feminine ego. So lock means burning, chuti. So rape of the lock. What is the lock for a woman? The lock for a woman in 18th century was the epitome of, or was the symbol of her beauty, and beauty is definitely the pride possession of a woman's dignity. So this poem is based on a very small incident, which is compared with an epic quality by taking a classical story from the classical story. That it is a story about a fiancé and a suitor, how the suitor cuts the hair of the fiancée without taking her permission, and to make her ugly. She loses her beauty and she became ugly, and the case goes on as an the case goes on for arbitration. So the simple matter, rape of the lock, because the cutting the hair without permission and destroying her beauty, destroying her feminine ego, is identified with rape. But at the same time, there is another meaning of the rape. There is a double meaning. That is, rape has come from the Latin word, that is repere, R-A-P-E-R-E, repere. Repere means to snatch away, to grab away, to take away. It is not the sexual rape, so far as the title of the poem is concerned, because Alexander Pope has used this particular word rape ordinarily to demoralize a woman, to destroy the dignity of a woman, but it is not exactly in the meaning of rape what we do mean. It is to grab what? Grab her dignity, grab her beauty, to grab her potential, for which she was very much egoistic towards her suitor. So how this simple element, the funny elements, are treated in such a serious manner by taking the classical characters, that was the greatness of these poets to to make restoration literature great. So finally, I will just draw your attention to a particular page of your book number 5, that is 61, page 61. And there is a important mm, question that can satire be a great poetry? Can satire be a great poetry? So if you look at your book 5, page 61, you will find that the question is very much asked there. So can satire be great poetry? And in that 61 page, at the ending paragraph, the ending paragraph of the page 61, it is very clearly written that yes, the answer is obviously yes, satire can be great poetry. It looks to be lighter, a light in a lighter vein, but yes, it is great because it has a definite role to perform in the society. That is it. I'm telling someone, if satire cannot be as great as a tragedy or the epic, nor can the lyric. In fact, realism rather than romance makes poetry more. So because of the use of realism, that makes poetry modern, that makes poetry more useful to the society. So Dryden is the first modern English poet in that sense, in which neither Milton nor Pope is. So you can go through that total chapter because you may get a question on that. That can satire be great poetry? So your answer is yes. And it is very much argued there that
Sir,
satire
which
is
unit?
always great. It is 24.4 unit. 24.4. If you have the software copy, then 24.4. There you will find. So this is
Sir,
for today.
what
Next
about
we shall meet.
Max Lecon?
Yes, Mac Flaconi is also there. Mac Flaconi is Dryden. So you can. It is also a poem. It is also a satire. You can. It is there in your page number. Page number 53. It is there. Mac Flaconi. It is very clearly narrated there. Introduction to Mac Flaconi. It is there. How is the poem autobiographical? It is social. It is historical. It is literary, and the autobiographical element is there. The own experience of the poem, and it interprets the mock heroic poem and the poetic technique, etc. The use of diction, the rhetoric style of John Dryden. So the poem, you can get it in page number 54, 55, and 56 probably. Very clearly it is given there. Okay. So whatever I discussed, all those things are there. The only thing is that you have to go through it in detail. Because you have only one class, I cannot go through detail. So I just give you some tips for that. Any other queries, then please say. Yes.
Please explain the words are
Burlesque.
burlesque work.
Burlesque. B-O-R-L-E-S-Q. Burlesque means a literary work to cause laughter. To cause laughter by caricaturing the manner or spirit of serious works. I mean, you will take a serious work and you will caricature it in a lighter way so that the audience will get pleasure, fun, humor out of that. But this rape of lock is highly burlesque. I mean, it is highly. You understand caricature? Caricature means you
Yes.
copy someone, but in a lighter vein to cause laughter in the audience or in the mind in the readers. That
Okay.
is burlesque.
So the synonym meaning of burlesque will be the brutality word.
No, brutality means animalistic. Brutal is animalistic. Burlesque means humorous. You can say humorous, ludicrous, funny. Okay, ludicrous, funny, humorous. But burlesque is a literary term. It has got a definite meaning so far as literature is concerned. Burlesque work. Okay. Okay.
Hello.
Okay. Yes.
Sir, assignment questions we will get hard copy or through online we will receive.
They are receiving it online. What I listened yesterday, that they are receiving it online also. You can deposit the hard copy, receiving it online also.
Okay.
Hello, sir.
You know, get the questions
Yes.
there.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes. Yes.
Hello, sir.
Please, say.
Hello, please again explain about Augustan age, sir. Just Augustan.
Augustan age. Okay. So this period is also called Augustan age. Why it is called Augustan age? Okay. Because Augustus Caesar was the Roman emperor. Okay. And during the emperorship of Augustus Caesar, that was the beginning of the Christian era, that 1 AD, we are in 21st century. So the beginning of Christian era, Latin literature, their national literature was Latin. Latin literature reached its height, maximum height, with the support of the great poets, classical poets like Virgil, Homer, Aeneid, etc. So from that age, the word Augustus the Augustus has derived an adjective from that is Augustan. So Augustan means the highest refinement of any national literature. So if any national literature reaches to the height of its maximum, sophistication or maximum, maximum status, then it is called Augustan. It is now a general term. So if you look at the English literature, during the age of Dryden, English literature has reached its highest peak. Okay, so the pinnacle of its success. So it is called Augustan age. It is named after Augustus, and the name Augustus age, and otherwise it is called Neoclassical age. I mean, in the name, it is in a new form. It is the classical age, Augustus age. So the very simple meaning of Augustan is the highest refinement of any national literature. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other query?
Sir, yesterday I asked about eschatological criticism.
I forgot it. I forgot it. Next time, you please ask me at the beginning, because
Okay,
at the
beginning,
end.
sir. I thought you have lesser time to discuss, so I will brought it in the end.
I have noted it also. You have asked for eschatological criticism, na?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I will tell you. Okay, I now remember. I'll explain you the next time. Okay. So our next class will be on Monday again. So Saturday, Sunday it is off. So again we shall meet on Monday at 10 a.m. Okay. So till then, goodbye. Have a good day to
Have a
all
good
of
day.
you. Okay. Thank you.